an open and shut case. Beloved, God never does anything by accident. But everything that is orchestrated by the hand of God is always done by providence. And providence, when you look at the word providence, pro meaning to give forward or to put forward, to go toward, and vidence, where we get the word video from, to see what is there. God always makes a way for us to have and to see what it is he wants us to possess. And so when we go through crises and when we go through situations in our lives, we always need to be reminded that it's not by accident, but by providence, because the hand of God is still upon his children, even in the midst of the predicament you find yourself in. Sometimes, beloved, we go through some stuff, and if God arranged it, we know God's going to bring us out of it. But then there are some things that are God allowed, that God allows to come into our lives, but yet God still will get the glory. He still will get the honor. He still will get the praise. We sometimes face a dilemma that causes us to face destruction. But then in facing a dilemma that causes us to face destruction, that's when God brings deliverance. You see, it's not until your back is against the wall, it's not until you can't find no other way, no other recourse, no other resource but God, that God will come right into your situation and bring you out of what you find yourself in. Daniel found himself in a situation where there were multiple disasters below that were looming. And yet there was an obstacle of a rock that was above him. He had circumstances looming around him, hungry lions, and he had obstacles above him. That was the rock that closed him in. He felt closed off and alone. But how many know when you can't see your way above, and when you don't know how to handle what's around, that's when you've got to look within. That's when you've got to look inside of yourself to see what you're made of, to see that you know God is able to deliver you even in the dark night of the soul. So that while, beloved, you may be in the midst of what you're going through, God is able to provide a way of escape and deliverance, because to God it's been deemed an open and shut case. See, it's interesting to note that Daniel, once hearing the decree coming forward, the Bible says in verse 10 that he did not change his pattern. He did not change his routine, because he went to the window that was open and got down on his knees as usual and began to connect and pray with God. And so that's a word for somebody in here. While your window is open, you need to learn to connect with God, because there's coming a time when some stuff gonna be closed off from you. And it seems like God is nowhere to be found. It seems like God is not in the midst. But while the window is open, you need to talk to God. You need to hear from God. You need to pray to God. There's an old adage that says that while testing is going on, the teacher is silent. But that the teacher only teaches in time of classroom instruction. You know, when you were in school, that the teacher didn't do a whole lot of teaching or giving out of lesson in the time of testing, but the teacher was silent. But now you've got to go back to what you've learned from the teacher before. You've got to go back from what you've garnered from God before, while the window was yet opened. Because just as sure as there's an open window, one day there's going to come a closed door. Just as sure as there's an open window of prayer, there will come a shut door by people that don't want you to advance. Just as sure as there's an open door of opportunity, there's going to be a closed door of opposition that comes up against you when you stand for what is right in the eyes of God. Even when you're in what you're in, God is still in control. God is in control of all situations. See, you thought you got here on your own. You thought you dressed yourself this morning. You thought you were the one that fixed your breakfast this morning. But it was nothing but the strength of God that enabled you to put one foot out of the bed and put the other foot out of the bed. It was nothing but God's power and strength that allowed you to put the buttons on your shirt. It was nothing but the strength of God that allowed you to whip them eggs and to eat those pancakes and to drink your coffee. God is in control of all situations. Whatever situation you find yourself in, you must understand that God, in an open and shut case, wants to prove to you while you're in the pit that God is in control. This is how I know God is in control. The lions didn't destroy or devour what it was supposed to destroy and devour. Please don't miss that. These were not circus lions. These were not tame or trained lions. These, the Bible said, were hungry lions, den filled with lions that they would feed on occasion. The lion was supposed to destroy and devour Daniel the moment he got in the midst of the pit or the den. But you know what? Because God is in control, even when you find yourself in a pit, God will tame the hungry lions so you won't be consumed. And that's a word for somebody. I know they're circling. I know they're looking. I know they seem hungry. But when God is for you, because you prayed when there was an open window, he'll shut the lion's mouth in the midst of where you find yourself at this time. Here's something else that proves the point that God is in control. Not only did the lions not do what they were supposed to do, but what should have happened, could have happened, and would have happened didn't take place, because Daniel came out, the Bible says, unhurt and unscathed. See, you know God is in control, that when you come out of the pit, you were supposed to look one way, but then when you come out the pit, you don't look like what you've been through. God help me. You don't look like you've been in the pit. You don't even smell like lions have been around you. Why? Because God has preserved you and protected you while you're in the midst of the pit. See, God proves that even in a pit, he's still in control. And this, how many know that you don't look like what you've been through? Okay, that ain't enough witnesses for me. See, the reason why I know you don't look like what you've been through, because I can't tell that you've been through anything. And the reason why I can't tell that you've been through anything, because you got a smile on your face when you should be crying. You got a laughter in your spirit when everybody else should be down. You are lifting up your head when everybody else is lifting down their head, because you know who God is. And you know that God is in control of your situation, because if he did it before, he'll do it again. And I just stopped by to tell somebody that God didn't leave you in a pit all by yourself. He didn't leave you in a pit predicament to leave you all alone. But God allowed you to come through the pit predicament of your life so that you can see that God is able to bring you through and to bring you out. Is there anybody in here, you know that God is able to bring you through because you've already been brought through? You know that God is real in your life. And I'm so glad I know God for myself, because I tried him and I found out a long time ago that God will bring you through, that God will bring you out, that God will bring you over. Is there anybody in here, you know without a shadow of a doubt that God was the one that brought you out? Well, if you know it, you ought to give God some praise. You ought to give God some glory. Say yes.